welcome to another day at fmtraining.tv where we discuss the fantastic, wonderful, and amazing FileMaker platform. Hello, I'm Margaret. I'm here with the wonderful Calvin, here to talk about, today specifically, a new window control in FileMaker. So that'll be really cool, getting precise window application control for your database. There we go. Real quick, we stream on 3 platforms. We stream on Discord, we stream on YouTube, and we stream on Twitch. I watch the questions from all of those, very much so. I interact with you guys, and I want to have these questions asked our wonderful presenters. Calvin loves answering questions, helps keep the live streams interesting, and so we can actually help you with your problems or things you might be stuck on. And again, I know everyone says there's no stupid questions. There is actually no stupid questions. Seriously, if you're thinking the question, someone else says the question, one of you has to say it so we can help you guys out. It's how we all become better developers. Real quick, we're going to discuss the live stream training schedule for this week. So today we have Calvin. Tomorrow we have 360works back to install their email plugin into a FileMaker database from scratch. Friday, Monday, and Tuesday we have hamburger and meatball menus in FileMaker with Nick Hunter, a more advanced discussion of that type of menu styling. And then Wednesday is going to be screen, real estate, and directed workflow in FileMaker with Richard and Michael. Basically, there's only so much screen you have, especially on iPhones and iPads or other mobile devices. How are you going to get everything you need on there? And how are you going to make things easy to understand so people are like, oh, this is where I go. Do we get cheese on our hamburger and meatballs? You'll have to ask Nick that, Ken. If it gets in the way of pretty UI design, I'm going to say no. Also, real quick, this channel is free. We do stream 5 days a week, but feel free to support us. We really appreciate it if you buy one of our bundles. It is 100 plus hours of fantastic video content, pretty much covering everything. They're like, well, all these live streams are great, but they don't really talk about what I want to learn about. Or, oh, I'd like to support the channel because this is great. Please buy these. We really appreciate it. You get tons and tons of training to it, and we're constantly adding to it. Just recently, we added an entire certification training course, which many of you have heard about. If you want to pass that certification, we've got a now new study guide course for you to figure out what to study so you can actually go ahead and pass it. It'll be great. With that, I think we might be good, Calvin. So, what are we doing?
All right, I'm excited about what we're going to go over today. It starts out real basic and simple. We've all added new windows. And then it gets into what the options are for opening new windows, and then how we can use those new windows, specifically card windows, for positioning exactly where we want on the layout dynamically, and for maybe to replace drop downs and give us different selections for our fields. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And you should be seeing a demo file now. Is that right?
Yes, we do.
All right. And feel free to chime in and ask questions as we go. But so let's look at our scripts. We have a few scripts here, and we're starting off with these new window options. When you first add a new window option and don't put any of the new window script step, and don't put any of the commands and any options in, you get a new window immediately over your old window. And these are kind of equally, they're equally preferred. One's not going to, it will add a number 2 to it. But you really don't want to use something like this. You'll see I'm on window 5, but I really can't tell because they're right on top of each other. Now, if I go to window and say new window, FileMaker automatically does this offset. And so you can see that we got two different windows here. So as you're working on this in your app, and if you want to pop a new window or have a script that pops a new window, you'll definitely want to not just put it right over the top of it. You want to offset it a little bit. So you can offset, let's go to this next script, by taking the current window position and adding any amount to it. So by default, it's going to select our same window position. And right now I'm just saying 25 because that's about what the FileMaker new window menu command does. You could change that to, now I'm going to do the left 50 and the top 25, so you can get that exactly where you want those new ones to go. Now, as you create new windows, I'm going to move that back to 25 just so they're the same. As you start creating new windows, you'll want to open those new windows. Maybe there's different purposes for opening new windows. And we'll notice in the new window dialog, we have the option to have a document window, and that's the default. That's like your regular, you're going through your app, you're working in a document window. Then there's a floating document. Now, a dialog and a card. So let's go look at each one, what each of these does and how they're different. So we looked at without any of the options set, it opens the window right on top. If it's really better to offset it or to position it. So in this case, we offset by 25 for a basic window. Now, floating document, you'll notice that it opens a new window, and you see this is the primary one. I'm going to try to click on the window behind it. And you'll notice now this one's highlighted. I can interact with this window. But the floating document floats on the top and stays front and center. Sometimes I'll use this if I have some option where maybe I want to view a PDF and I put I have an interactive container field or something, and I want to open it up and just have that container field in a window. Maybe I'll put it there. Maybe I have some details in a field, maybe just a plain text field. I want that up front and center, so the user sees it, but allow them to interact with the record behind. And so that's where you might use a floating document. And so the next option is a dialog. Now, a dialog is similar to a floating document in that it's up front, but if I try to click behind it, I'm not allowed to interact with this window behind. And can you hear the beep?
No, we won't be able to, I don't think.
So it's beeping, telling me that I can't go back there. I need to stay in this window, and such. So so that's how the dialog works. And the idea is that you might have this in the middle of a script, or but we're forcing the person to interact with this window before they go and do anything else. They can't do anything else. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And finally, we've got the new card window. And by default, the card will create a new window. Oops, that's not what I wanted. The size and the size of the layout that you call. So let's go ahead and look at this. If I say new window card, and I guess in this case, I'm not specifying what layout I'm going to. So the card will open up the current layout that I'm on. But if I specify a layout, and I'm just going to specify the layout that we were looking at, I think it's called FileMaker Demo, you'll notice it automatically puts in a grayed out height and width, and those will be what it defaults to, and you can change those or override them. I'm going to say current layout. But it will only do that if you specify what layout it is. If you don't specify, you'll notice the card centers over this, but you'll scroll around to get there. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about these options for creating a new window. And so another aspect of creating of interacting with these windows is your size and position. So if you've worked with FileMaker for any amount of time or have seen some older apps, you might remember that they used to always have the apps start in the top left corner. So you can move your windows around. So this is, and this script, all it's doing is positioning it to the top left corner of the layout. So let's go and see what that looks like. All I'm doing is telling it I'm saying get window height and width. I guess I could leave these blank because we're not changing them. And I'm saying the distance from top and distance from left is 0. So that's counting from the top left of the desktop. So it moves it there. But that's not really, that's not too exciting. What are some other options? We could have it fill the screen. And here we are, let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'm just saying the height and width should be the desktop height and the desktop width, and the distance from the top and left corners is 0. If you have an app that uses a lot of real estate, you might have that. Often for people, I have a button that will expand the window to fill their screen without having to select the full screen option. And that way they can quickly expand the window without having to manually move it to the corner and resize it. But that's especially true with a layout that has a lot of that uses a lot of real estate. Okay, another thing that so I mentioned before, it used to be we would see apps that would open up to the top left corner, and now a lot of times we expect apps to open up either where we last closed them. So you could have, I didn't build it in this demo, but I have built it in options in some apps where it remembers the last place you closed the window and opens it up back to that same location. But another option would be to center the window over the desktop. And let's go ahead and look at how we do that, because the calculation here is a little interesting. So we leave it the height and width that it currently is, and we get the window desktop height and divide it by 2, and subtract the window content height divided by 2, and that gives us where we want the top, and we do the same thing with the width, and it gives us this position. So it could be off to the side, and as soon as we say center, it centers right on your desktop. Now it looks a little, I feel like it looks a little low, so we might center it a little high. And I said the top third, but I'm not sure exactly if that's exactly the third. But here, the only difference I did is to, instead of the height being divided by 2 to put in the exact middle, I divide by 4, and we can mess around with those and see how, maybe if you want it a little higher, we could say 5, see what that does. We'll move it, and that just moves up a little farther. And you can really customize and make it exactly where you want. So those are some really basic options for opening and resizing windows. Do we have any questions before we look at the more fun stuff?
No. Kyle Williams mentions that he uses about 40 pixels from the top number to get it centered. But I don't see any questions on YouTube, Twitch, or Discord. Otherwise.
Okay, so we've talked about moving and resizing these windows. And so the next thing I'd like to look at is using a card window for if you want to have more details in a pop-up menu or something. It's not really a pop-up menu. It's a card with options in it, and it may be the options are more detailed, or maybe you just want to have it expand your bring up a card to show more fields. But in this case, I'm using it like a card. So using the card like a pop-up menu. So in this case, as soon as you enter this field, I'm using an on-object enter trigger to open up a card, and I'm just using the default option. So by default, it opens up the card in the center. And this is a detail. This is a form view for the layout. And I'll go ahead and select one of these. I'll just select return. Now the next one, you'll see it says top left. So here, it dynamically determined what the top left of that field is and opened the card to cover the top left. I'll say option 2. Now, if I go to the layout mode and move this to the browse mode, click in, it moves, instead of having that card just open right at the center, it's figuring out exactly where my field is and then opening the card right on top of that. And so this allows us to allows us to have a dynamic pop-up option for a layout that can be in relation to whatever field we're interacting with at the time. So that was this one was the top. I'm going to just select escape. This was top left. I'll tab to the next one. And now this one is bottom left. So it's aligning the top of the card with the bottom of the field and the left of the card with the left of the field. And this is probably something more like what you would want to see so that you can see what's in the field currently and put a new selection in. The next is top right. I like this one too because it comes out, you can still see what's in the field and you can see what other fields are coming up next. And those might have some interaction with it. And then we have bottom right. It kind of comes off the corner. But if you wanted, maybe you wanted to indent it a little bit farther in, you could subtract from the bottom right option there and have it overlap a little bit, which could be nice. So I'll select that. And then, so let's go ahead and take a look at how we're doing that, and then we'll get into our more options. So, okay. So in all of these cases, I'm using the same script trigger. So, and you may or may not want this as a script trigger. I just did it because it was just for the sake of the demo. You could have an arrow key or arrow button next to the layout to select where you want select that you want to use the card instead of typing right in. It's just called options card. Now, in each of these cases, each of the first one is just opening up like a regular card, and each of the ones where it gives the dynamic position, I'm using the same script. So options card position. We'll do the next one. Oops, not conditional formatting, script triggers. So options card position, you'll see, but we're just changing what the script parameter is. So let's go ahead and look at this. And I pulled this out of my emoji gallery. So I'm going to say options. But it is a neat technique for any kind of options pop-up that you want. So here we are passing two parameters in a list. So we're first telling it whether it's going to be at the top or the bottom of the field that we're selecting. And the second is whether it's left or right. And in these 4 fields, I gave every combination of those 2. And one thing that's critical if you use something like this is that the field has to have a name to it, and I'll show you why. Here is our calculation where we determine where the field position is. And we use a get layout object attribute. Point to the object name. The object name is just the active layout object name, but it has to be named for that name to work, for it to appear. And then we tell it we want the, let's go ahead and get layout object attribute so we can see what the placeholders are in here. So we got the object name, the attribute name, repetition, and portal row number. Now the portal row and repetition, in this case, I'm not using them, but I'm grabbing the active repetition and active portal row in these get functions. And the window position gives us the what we're looking for. Here, whether we want the top, bottom, left, or right. And in this case, if no parameters are passed, it defaults to left, bottom. And then we are getting the window top and defining a status area height here. The window content height minus the window height minus the window content height gives us the status area height. And that tells us the position that we want this card to appear on the layout or over the window. You have to convert the card position. You can't just say we want it the X and Y position based on the window, because a card X and Y position is based on the current window. And that actually is an interesting thing that I didn't point out earlier. So here, if we say new window card, by default it centers over the parent window. But if I say I want the top to be 0 and the left to be 0 for this card, and it will position it as 0, 0 according to the parent window. Now, if I did that on, say, just a general default command, put it at 0, 0, so top left and left 0 and the bottom, it's going to go to the 0, 0 point on the desktop. So that's one way that card windows are a little different than all the other options. Cards are only calculate their position based on the parent window. Okay, so we're using that calculation to determine where the position of this field is on the layout, and because it's actually, when we get these, the calculation is telling us the position on the desktop, and we have to convert that to a position on the window, and then we can open up our card to the exact position where we want it. Now, do we have any questions about how we're positioning these exactly where we want in relation to the selected field?
I don't see any. Anyone curious as to, or did Calvin explain it really well? Any questions about how it works?
I feel like I might have gone over that fast. But we're using a bunch of different functions and calculations to get where the bottom and the left positions, and a combination of the get layout object attribute, the window height and window content height, and all of those coming together. Under the resources in this file, which we're going to make available to you after this, we have a bunch of the functions that we're using: get window content height, window width, and these are all helpful items to review. And most of them, you'll see this one goes back to FileMaker 7. These are all things that have been around for quite a while. I think the newest thing in here is probably just the card window. Okay, so if we don't have any questions.
David had kind of a question. He said, I have to draw the window next to the command to remember what is what.
I have to draw the window next to the command to remember what is what? I'm not sure I follow what that is.
Oh, in a paper. Oh, he's just saying that he has a difficult time remembering which window command is what, I assume?
Okay. The I guess though, is he talking about the functions? If we look at these functions, we've got window content height, and that's the window minus the status area. The window content width, that's the width of the window. And one thing I'd be interested, if the window didn't stretch, would it count that? Would it count the entire window, or would it just count where the content ends? Then we got the desktop height and width, the window left, window top, and the window height and the window width. So a lot of different things that come into play. Okay. If we don't have any more questions, did you have any more clarification on that?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Window content height includes the toolbar? Question mark.
No, so let's go ahead and open this up in the data viewer and look at what this is. So we have window get window content height, evaluate. So our window content height is 771. Get window height. And you'll notice our height is 876. Now let me just change this. Now our window content height is 640, and our window height is 668. So let me try to change this so that the content doesn't change. Okay. So now the content is still 640 because I made sure it resized to the full height, but the window height is 745. If we look at the calculation here, when I say status area, we're getting the window height, which is the total, minus the window content height. And the reason why we are dynamically creating this instead of just putting in a set number is that, let me go ahead and just copy this. This number will change based on whether how large the toolbar is, or if we're showing the entire toolbar. So evaluate, the difference is 105. And now when I change this, now the difference is 28. Now if I move this around, the 28 doesn't change because we didn't change the menu bar. Now it's 105, and even if I move the window around, you'll see our menu is still the same height, so the 105 is still staying the same. Does that answer the question? Window height is the full window. Window content height is just the layout area.
And yes, real quick, I'll say it again for the audience. There is a demo file. This is the demo file. It'll be given after we're done presenting. So.
Okay. So finally we've got these card windows that pop up, and we're changing the position on them. But maybe we have more options. Maybe we have that we want to include. So and that maybe we don't want to position it next to a window. So I've got a more options, and this it might look familiar, as this is kind of the principle that we used based on to base the what is it called, my add-on with the navigation. So here we're giving it a position of 0 for the top left corner, and we're giving the height of this to be the window content height. So it filled the window exactly. Let's go ahead and just take a look at that. So here left, we're saying the window content height, the distance from left is 0, and the top will be set to the 0 point because the content at the window height is the same as the content height. And let's try that one more time. So more options. There, it fills that up just exactly, and we can select something in there. Now, one thing we could try out here just to see the difference is change this to window height, and we'll see what happens. And let's go ahead and try that. So we got our window height, and let's go ahead and do that. Now you'll notice it centered it, but it is above our menu bar a little bit and below our menu bar, which doesn't look very great. Let's go ahead and try something different. We'll say the top will be window get window height. Get window content height. Now I think this will give us, we'll start at the top of the menu bar. Let's try that, see what happens. So there, instead of being down inside the content, now we've got use this option to fill the entire, cover the entire layout or entire window from the top of the menu bar to the bottom and give us a little more real estate there, which is, I haven't done that, used that option before, but it gives it a little more real estate on there. So if you add more options, and it makes it feel not quite as much a part of the first layout. So it all depends on what you would, how you would want to do that. But that's another option you could have there. So here we just did it on the left. Now maybe you want it on the right. You could just move it to the right side. And to move it to the right, we are getting the height is the same, window content height. And then the left, we are getting the window content width minus, and 212 happens to be the width of my window of my options layout. So if we go over here, this options card list is 212. So so we're saying that we want it, we want the left side 212 points less than the window content height, and that just lines it up right there on the right side of the screen. Now if we, or right side of the window. Now if we didn't have that 212, disable that and have it just go next to the window, could be interesting. So I'll say right, and now it's right on the top of that window. And actually, this might, in this case, I think that would look kind of cool if we had our top. I'm going to copy that top that where we had it cover up the, what was it? We had it cover up the menu bar. So in this case now, let's say escape and say right. Now we have this card window that that comes off to the side and it feels a little more like it's off. It's something else. And maybe we could have different help topics that would be over there. We go change, make one more change here. We'll say, instead of window content height, we're going to say get window height. So now we have this window that opens up. Let's go ahead and try, do this. It opens up off to the side, and we can scroll through here and see what options we have. I think help topics would be really helpful. Would be a neat way to do that. But let's try that one more time. Now this time I didn't dim the window, and that's so we can see everything in here while we see all of our options on the right. So a lot of different options you can do with those new windows. Here I have more options in the center. This opens up in the center. You'll notice in FM Starting Point, we do a search that opens up as a list in the center of the screen. I've actually, more recently, I've moved my searches to the left of the screen, over here on the left. And that, I feel, it seemed a little more, especially with using the master detail. So the search list is kind of covering up the master detail, and you can still see more of the details that you're adding to. And but it's the position of it is your choice. Now, finally, we have more options that's dynamic. Now this time I'm having kind of using both techniques together. In this case, I'm having it this list appear just to the right of the field that I'm editing. So if I move this field over here and select it, say more dynamic options, it moves that and puts it right next to where I want it to appear, so I can kind of see the relation where that field, where that options, my more options card is being used and which field it's going to. So that's kind of the, that really goes over what we had here.
We do have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
From Peter Geens, does the calculation of the content height change automatically if you toggle the formatting bar on or off?
So, yes, it does. Now, if we look at the data viewer, you'll see window content height, window height are 779, 807, and I just move them. It changed automatically there. Let me see if I can break it. Okay, now I just moved the window. Do you see that? And it didn't change any of the numbers. I just need to select refresh. So if you change your window and you run a script or reference these calculations, the functions automatically refresh, but in the data viewer, you don't see that necessarily. You have to select the refresh values. So it looked like it wasn't calculating right away, but if you're using those, it will. Good question.
Okay, and the next question is about gestures. Does card window have gestures?
Gestures?
Yeah, sorry.
So if you're using this in FileMaker Go, one of the things that FileMaker Go does that we don't have, unfortunately, with FileMaker Pro is in FileMaker Go, if you tap in this gray area, it will dismiss the card window, which is kind of what people expect these days in interacting with card windows. But FileMaker Pro does not do that. So clicking over here doesn't close anything. But FileMaker Go does respect that gesture. Within the layout itself, gestures can still be used if you have a card window with, say, a tab control. It will use the gestures if those are enabled for the tab control. It will, and the card layout kind of behaves just like a regular layout in that sense. Anything else?
Didn't NJ release a file that dismisses the card window on Pro if you tap outside the card window?
Someone did, and so the technique that they're using to do that is the parent window is actually off screen and has an on timer trigger to determine what screen is in the front. And so to illustrate how that worked, so if I open this one and open a card, so I can interact with this layout behind this layout with the card because the card the parent window is over here. So in that demo, the parent window was off screen hidden. And so as soon as the on timer trigger saw that the previous window that looked like the parent but wasn't was the main window, it would close whatever card window was there. And so that's how that worked, which I haven't used that technique.
Another question from Stu. Following up on
Mm-hmm.
Peter's question, is there a script trigger to capture a window position or size change? Example, to change the size position of a card or something else.
Well, cards, you can't change the position manually. You have to use a script or something. But if you look at your script triggers, there is an on layout size change. So if we say get on layout size change, and I'm just going to say new on layout size change, show custom dialog, and I'm just going to say get window height. And then I'll say that in there. window width. What's missing? So here, what I'm going to do is just have a custom dialog up here to tell you what the window size change is. So if I double click there, now it's going to tell me the window height is 745, 1024. Change it again, 818, 1096, and so it's running every time we change the window size. Is that the question that is that pertinent to the question? Does that answer the question?
So we'll see if that answers his question or not. Peter Gaines is also typing. Yes.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Yeah, the on-window size change, I'm trying to think of when I've used that. I used that with the calendar when there was to compensate for a problem of getting it with the JavaScript, but I don't think we need that anymore. And because JavaScript corrected itself. I'm trying to think of another time I've used the window resize trigger, but nothing's coming to mind at now, or a way that I use it regularly. Any other questions?
iPhone, iPad rotation. I don't know if that's a question or more of just like a comment.
Oh yeah, that would be a good. So if you rotate the iPad or iPhone, the FileMaker Go does read that as a size change. So if you have a different layout for your portrait, for the iPad, iPhone in portrait versus landscape, then you could switch layouts based on the layout size change. That would work. Oh, another thing that we use for layout size change is in the FM gallery. That, based on the layout size change, it will refresh so that you get that grid of images. So the two good uses of the on layout size change. Anything else?
David kind of mentioned that Nick had a technique about change window size to switch layouts if an iPad is vertical or horizontal.
Yep. Yeah. If you have separate vertical and horizontal layouts, that would work. I'm not sure I've worked on a project where we had separate layouts for vertical and horizontal. Most people don't want to spend for two sets of layouts to do the same thing.
Other than that, I don't see any questions. So.
All right. Well, so this file.
Do you want to send it to me real quick? So I'll just get it ready.
Yeah, it's going to be made available to everybody, and it has. It's going to have the live stream link once that's ready. It's got a bunch of the links that we used, and kind of goes through an explanation of each of these buttons, and then we have our options there plus the changes that we've made. And so you'll be receiving this as soon as I get it to Margaret.
Thank you all. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you so much, Calvin. I really appreciate it. I'm going to run the end credits.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.